The fishing dock in Beacon Point smelled of salt and diesel fuel. 17-year-old Marcus Webb had worked there for 3 summers, loading nets and learning the trade from his grandfather. That September evening, he'd stayed late to organize equipment, his head full of college applications and scholarships. 2 Harbor Patrol officers arrived just as he was leaving, their uniforms crisp despite the humid air. They moved with the casual authority of men accustomed to no one questioning them. "That's him," one muttered to the other, his tone already accusatory. Marcus felt his chest tighten. His mother, Catherine Webb, had trained him since childhood: stay calm, be respectful, know your rights. He gripped his backpack tighter. "We got a report of theft at the chandlery 2 blocks over," Officer Patterson announced, his hand resting on his belt. "Someone matching your description was spotted nearby." "I've been here all evening," Marcus said quietly, gesturing toward the dock manager. "Ask Mr. Rivera." "I was helping him inventory, that so?" Officer Mullins circled him like a predator. "Empty your pockets, kid." "I haven't done anything wrong," Marcus replied, maintaining his composure. "I work here. I'm a regular." Mr. Rivera stepped forward from the dock office. "The boy's telling the truth, officers. He's been with me for hours." Patterson ignored him completely. "I said empty your pockets. Now." Marcus's hands trembled as he complied. A wallet, keys, his phone, loose change, nothing incriminating. But Patterson's expression never changed, as if he'd already decided on the narrative. "Come with us for questioning," Mullins said, reaching for Marcus's arm. "Wait, please," Marcus started, but Patterson was already pulling him toward their patrol boat. "Mr. Rivera, call my mother, please," Marcus called out as they forced him into the vessel. The night air hit him like a wall. They shoved him against the boat's railing, pressing his face against cold metal. His shoulders scraped the rough surface as they roughly searched him again. "Stop resisting," Mullins shouted, though Marcus hadn't moved. "I'm not," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "Please, I haven't done anything." A small crowd had gathered on the dock. Elena Santos, still wearing her nurse's scrubs from her shift at the medical center, pulled out her phone and began recording. Her hands shook with anger. "He's just a kid," she called out. "Back off," Mullins warned, though his voice wavered with uncertainty. What happened next dissolved into chaos. Patterson struck Marcus in the ribs. Mullins claimed he was resisting. Marcus felt the stun device activate, electricity tearing through his body, and then he was on the weathered planks, concrete scraping his face, blood mixing with tears. "Mama," he whimpered as they forced handcuffs onto his wrists. Patterson's knee pressed into his back. "Shut up, boy." Elena's voice rang out from the crowd. "This is wrong. He's just a kid." The officers yanked Marcus to his feet, blood dripping from his split lip. His new school shirt was torn, covered in dirt and blood. As they threw him into the patrol boat's cabin, he caught a glimpse of Elena still filming, her face a mixture of fury and determination. The boat's engine roared to life. Through the small window, Marcus could see Mr. Rivera shaking his head slowly, his expression haunted. The old man's words were barely audible, they just made the worst mistake of their lives. Elena looked down at her phone, the red recording light still blinking. She hovered over the upload button, knowing this video could change everything. Catherine Webb worked as a special investigator for the National Marine Resource Commission, tracking environmental crimes and corrupt harbor officials. Her office in the regional capital overlooked the bay she'd grown to love over 20 years of service. That evening, she was reviewing case files when her phone began buzzing incessantly. 12 missed calls. 23 messages. A video link titled "Harbor Brutality at Beacon Point" appeared at the top. Something cold settled in her stomach. Beacon Point. Where Marcus worked, her fingers trembled as she clicked the link. The video loaded, grainy at first, then crystal clear. There was Marcus, her 18-year-old son, being slammed against a boat's railing. Officers throwing him to the ground. "No," she whispered, watching in horror as they used the stun device on him. Every cry from Marcus felt like a physical blow. When they tasered him, Catherine's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a scream of rage. Her son's blood on concrete, his torn shirt, his terrified voice calling for her. Catherine was moving before the video finished. She grabbed her service weapon from the safe, checked it with mechanical precision despite her shaking hands. Badge, keys, phone. Her mind raced through protocols and procedures, even as maternal fury threatened to overwhelm her. The drive to Beacon Point took 40 minutes. Catherine drove with emergency lights flashing, her hands gripping the wheel until her knuckles went white. Memory flashes hit her as she drove, teaching Marcus how to handle police encounters, drilling him on his rights, watching him practice saying yes sir and no sir in the mirror, all her careful preparation, all her protection stripped away by 2 badges and systemic injustice. "Keep it together," she muttered to herself, weaving through traffic. "Think like an investigator. Document everything, she called her supervisor, leaving a detailed message about the situation. Next, she contacted her lawyer, then the Civil Rights Division. Each call was precise, professional, her voice betraying none of the fear and rage churning inside her. The Beacon Point Harbor Station appeared just before midnight, a weathered building with peeling exterior paint and flickering fluorescent signs. Catherine parked directly in front of the entrance, leaving her emergency lights flashing. Inside, the front desk officer barely glanced up until Catherine's credentials slapped onto the counter. "I'm here for Marcus Webb." Catherine's voice was still wrapped in professionalism. "You have my son in custody." The officer sighed, bored. "Visiting hours are over. Come back tomorrow to post bail." "I'm not here to visit." Catherine's badge caught the fluorescent light, golden and official. "I'm here to take my son home now." The badge seemed to drain the color from the officer's face. Phones stopped ringing. Conversations died mid-sentence. The entire precinct seemed to hold its breath. I'll get the captain," the officer stammered, scrambling from his desk. Captain James Lockwood appeared, all false charm and pressed uniform. His smile never reached his eyes. "Investigator Webb," he said smoothly. "What a surprise. I wasn't aware the commission had interest in local matters. Where is my son?" Each word was precisely enunciated. "Your boy was caught up in a theft investigation." Matched the description perfectly. Lockwood's smile tightened as Catherine stepped closer. "I saw the video," she said quietly. "I want the body camera footage now." "There seems to be some technical difficulty with those devices," Lockwood replied with a gesture of false helplessness. Both cameras malfunctioned simultaneously. "Equipment failure." Catherine's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "That's quite a coincidence, Captain. Both systems failing at exactly the same moment." "These things happen," he said, spreading his hands, but something in Catherine's voice, or perhaps the barely contained fury in her eyes, made Lockwood step back. He nodded to an officer who hurried to fetch keys. They led her to the holding cells. Marcus sat hunched on a metal bench, his tall frame trying to make itself smaller. Dried blood crusted his nose and lip. His new school shirt, the one Catherine had bought him just weeks ago, was ruined. The cell door clanged open. Catherine knelt in front of her son, gently touching his bruised face. "You're safe now, baby," she whispered, pulling him close. They have no idea who they just messed with. The drive home was silent except for Marcus's occasional winces when they hit bumps. His swollen face looked worse in the growing light. The medical report from the emergency room said in Catherine's briefcase, contusions, mild concussion, bruised ribs. Each injury catalogued, photographed, and documented. Her phone rang. Assistant Director Morrison's voice filled her car through the Bluetooth connection. "I've been briefed on the situation in Beacon Point," he said gravely. "I understand you're preparing a full report." "Yes, sir. Multiple civil rights violations, evidence tampering, and cover-up." "Stand down, Catherine." His tone was firm, absolute. Catherine's jaw clenched. "With all due respect, sir, they assaulted my 17-year-old son. They deleted body camera footage. They're destroying evidence." "I understand you're upset as a mother," Morrison cut in. "But don't make this personal. Don't turn this into a federal matter. Handle it through proper channels." "Proper channels?" Catherine's laugh was bitter. "Like the local review board that Captain Lockwood's brother-in-law chairs?" "That's an order, Catherine. Stay out of it." The call ended. Catherine's hands tightened on the wheel until her knuckles went white. "Mom?" Marcus's voice was small. "Maybe we should just let it go. I don't want you to lose your job." Catherine pulled into their driveway, turning to face her son. In the growing light, she could see every bruise, every scrape. Her baby boy, who'd never hurt anyone, who helped elderly neighbors with their groceries and tutored younger kids in math. "Tell me everything," she said softly. "I need to know exactly what happened." Over the next hour, Marcus described the encounter in detail. The officer's racist comments. The deliberate brutality. The threats they'd made, claiming they'd plant evidence if he didn't confess to a crime he didn't commit. A knock on the car window made them both jump. Mrs. Chin, their elderly neighbor, stood there in her morning robe holding a tablet. Catherine got out, positioning herself protectively between Mrs. Chin and Marcus, but the old woman's face was creased with concern. "I saw what they did to your boy," she said, holding out her tablet. "Elena Santos, she's my granddaughter. She filmed it before posting online. I made copies of the original." Catherine took the tablet, pressing play. The footage was clearer than the viral version she'd seen. You could hear the officer's racist comments clearly. See their deliberate brutality. Watch them laugh and high-five after throwing Marcus in the patrol boat. "It's everywhere," Mrs. Chin continued. Twitter, Facebook, all over the news. People are using a hashtag, Justice for Marcus. As if on cue, news vans turned onto their street, followed by another and another. Get inside, Catherine told Marcus, gathering their things. Mrs. Chen, thank you. Would you be willing to make a formal statement? The older woman nodded firmly. Those men need to learn they can't treat people this way. Not anymore. Inside, Catherine helped Marcus settle on the couch while reporters gathered outside. Their phones kept buzzing with messages and notifications. The hashtag Justice for Marcus was trending nationwide. Catherine sat at her desk connecting Mrs. Chen's tablet to her laptop. She played the video again and again. Each viewing stoked her fury, but also her determination. She noticed details she'd missed before: badge numbers, name tags, the reflection of a recording device that supposedly wasn't working. Marcus had fallen asleep on the couch, pain medication finally taking effect. Catherine watched him breathe, saw how even in sleep, he held himself carefully to avoid pressure on his ribs. She turned back to the video, freeze-framing Officer Mullins's smirking face as he whispered his taunt about running. If they want to play dirty, she murmured, pulling out her case files and notebook. I'll show them what real investigation looks like. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing databases she'd built during years of environmental crime investigations. Patterns emerged. Similar incidents buried in reports. Officers transferred between departments. Evidence that consistently went missing. A system designed to protect its own. 3 days later, Captain Lockwood held a press conference at the harbor station. He stood at a podium with silver hair gleaming under the lights, his expression grave but controlled. Security footage clearly shows the suspect attempting to leave the premises with stolen merchandise, he announced. When confronted, the individual became combative and struck Officer Patterson. The screen showed carefully edited footage of Marcus at the dock. Catherine's blood boiled. They'd removed everything incriminating. No brutal takedown, no slurs, no tasering, just fragments that made her son look guilty. Catherine grabbed her keys and badge. Stay here. Keep the doors locked, she told Marcus. The drive to the harbor station took 7 minutes. The parking lot was crowded with news vans and protesters holding hastily made signs, Justice for Marcus and Stop Harbor Brutality. Inside, Officer Mullins sat at the front desk, his smirk widening when he saw her. I need to see Captain Lockwood, Catherine said, slapping her commission credentials on the desk. Tell him Investigator Webb is here about tampering with evidence in a federal investigation. Mullins's smirk faltered. He picked up the phone, whispered something, then nodded toward the hall. Catherine noticed everything as she walked through the station. The subtle nods between officers. The way Patterson leaned back in his chair, boots on his desk, looking completely unbothered. The quiet conversations that stopped when she passed. Captain Lockwood's office reeked of leather and old cigars. He stood behind his desk, hands clasped behind his back, staring out the window. That was quite a performance on television, Catherine said, closing the door. Investigator Webb, I thought I made myself clear last night. I want the complete footage, Catherine continued. Security cameras, body cameras, dash cameras, all of it. Lockwood turned, his smile never reaching his eyes. I'm afraid that's impossible. As I explained, there were technical difficulties. Technical difficulties don't selectively edit footage to make an innocent kid look guilty. Your officers assaulted my son in front of witnesses. You deleted body camera footage from a dock whose owner publicly stated Marcus did nothing wrong. The case files are already sealed, she said. How did that happen so fast, Captain? Who do you have working for you inside the commission? Something flickered across Lockwood's face, satisfaction, maybe, or triumph. I think we're done here, Investigator Webb. Don't let your maternal feelings cloud your professional judgment. Catherine left the station, her mind racing. The speed of the cover-up, the sealed files, the coordinated response. This wasn't just local corruption. Someone with federal authority was helping them. Catherine drove to the Harbor Rights Community Center, where Reverend Patrick Williams had been leading the fight for justice since before Catherine was born. The old brick building stood proud despite its weathered appearance. Reverend Williams sat in his office surrounded by yellowing newspaper clippings and photographs from decades of civil rights struggles. His eyes were sharp despite his age, taking in Catherine's commission badge and troubled expression. I've been expecting you, he said, gesturing to a chair. Saw what they did to your boy. Reverend Williams, I need to understand what I'm up against. Catherine's voice was steady, but fear ran beneath it. The old man sighed, pulling out a thick folder from his desk. 1989, James Morrison, 18 years old. Resisting arrest, beaten so badly he lost partial hearing in one ear. 1997, David Cho, 17, matched a description, found with planted drugs. 2004, Rafael Santos, 16, supposedly assaulted an officer, ended up with permanent nerve damage. He spread out the articles, the photos, the documentation of lives destroyed. How do they keep getting away with it? Catherine asked. Because you're not fighting two officers, Reverend Williams leaned forward. You're fighting the whole system that protects them. The same judges sign the warrants. The same prosecutors decline to press charges. The same federal agents seal the files. Catherine drove home as darkness fell, her mind heavy with Williams's words and the weight of decades of buried injustice. The house was dark except for Marcus's bedroom light. The crash of breaking glass shattered the silence. Catherine drew her weapon, moving toward the sound. In the living room, a rock lay among glittering shards of window glass. A note was wrapped around it. Leave town or lose your career. Upstairs, she heard Marcus stir. Mom, what was that? He called out. Catherine looked at the note, then at her weapon, its weight familiar and resolute in her hand. She thought of all those other young men, James, David, Raphael, and how the system had failed them. Not this time, she whispered, her grip tightening on her weapon. 2 days later, in a converted warehouse space that housed the independent documentary studio Voices Unheard, Catherine met with Elena Santos and documentary filmmaker Michael Torres. Elena had evolved from accidental witness to committed activist. Michael had been documenting Harbor Authority corruption for years. Michael pulled up files on multiple screens. What happened to your son isn't random, he said, showing Catherine graphs and statistics. I've been tracking the Harbor Patrol for nearly a decade. Look at this pattern. Arrest rates, complaint records, mysterious evidence losses appeared across the screens. 10 years of systematic targeting, Michael explained. Always against young men of color. Always with lost footage, always ruled justified. How are they getting away with it? Catherine asked. Money. Elena pulled up financial records. Asset seizure funds, inflated budgets, mysterious donations. Someone's paying to keep this quiet. And someone in the commission is helping, Catherine added, thinking of Morrison's swift order to stand down. Exactly, Michael nodded. But they slipped up with Marcus. They didn't know who his mother was. Now we have a chance to expose everything. That night, Catherine spread documents across her dining room table. She'd taken unpaid leave from the commission, burning bridges to pursue justice. She cross-referenced cases, looking for patterns. A name caught her eye, then another. 3 deaths, all labeled accidental overdoses. Young men of color, all stopped by Harbor Patrol in the weeks before their deaths. All cases involved officers Patterson and Mullins. Marcus Johnson, 19, found in his apartment with a lethal combination of substances. The dash camera footage from his last traffic stop corrupted. Deshaun Williams, 17, died after a night in custody. The holding cell camera malfunctioned. Andre Chen, 20, dead from a boating accident after officers performed a safety inspection the day before. Catherine's stomach churned. This wasn't just brutality. This was murder. She pulled up photos of the victims. Young faces, bright smiles. Lives ended too soon. Then she looked at Marcus's medical photos, the bruises, the stun marks, the fear in his eyes, the same officers. The same pattern. The same cover-ups. Thunder crashed outside. Catherine stood up, walking to the window. Rain lashed against the glass as lightning illuminated the street. Her reflection stared back at her, not just a commission investigator now, but a mother fighting for every young man these officers had hurt. You picked the wrong family, she whispered, her voice hard with determination. The secure messaging app chimed at 2 a.m. A link appeared from Derek, an IT specialist at the commission who'd become an unexpected ally. Found the backup server, his message read. Complete original footage. Metadata intact. Use it carefully. Catherine's hands trembled as she held her phone. Here was the complete, unedited security video of Marcus's assault. Every brutal second, every word, every damning moment, she texted Elena and Michael. They met at a small cafe 2 towns over, choosing a corner table away from windows. Elena's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard as she accessed the secure link. It's comprehensive, she whispered. Multiple video files, timestamp logs, audio recordings. The first video file loaded. The doc's security footage was clear. They watched Marcus enter, polite, nodding to Mr. Rivera. Minutes later, officers Patterson and Mullins appeared. The officers' racist comments came through clearly. The footage showed everything: unprovoked aggression, Marcus's calm compliance. The moment they started beating him, their laughter mixed with his cries. This proves they lied, Elena breathed. This proves everything. Catherine made a decision. Upload it. Route it through multiple proxies, anonymous accounts. Let it spread naturally. They worked from Elena's laptop, routing the upload through secure servers. The video file was titled simply, The Truth About Beacon Point Harbor Patrol. Ready? Elena asked, her finger hovering over the enter key. Catherine thought of Marcus's bruises, of Mr. Rivera's fear, of 3 dead young men who never got justice. Do it. The upload bar filled slowly. Complete. Posted. For 5 minutes, nothing happened. Then 10 shares, then 100. Comments flooded in. Local news stations picked it up, then national outlets. The hashtag Justice for Marcus trended again, this time with hard evidence. Calls for investigations poured in. Within an hour, the video had reached 1 million views through the cafe window. Catherine watched unmarked vehicles still circling, unaware that their targets had just launched a digital missile. The truth was spreading faster than they could contain it. The video had been online for less than 3 hours when the harbor station released their definitive footage. Catherine watched it on her phone, her jaw clenching tighter with each frame. The new video showed a completely different scenario, Marcus appearing aggressive, supposedly shoving Officer Patterson before the arrest. The quality was pristine, almost too perfect. Look at the lighting inconsistencies, Elena said, peering over Catherine's shoulder. The shadows don't even match. It's clearly manipulated. Catherine zoomed in on specific frames. Amateur editing job. They didn't even bother matching the timestamp format, but the damage was spreading. Local online communities erupted in heated debates. The original assault footage versus those claiming it was selectively edited. Catherine's phone rang. Assistant Director Morrison's name flashed on the screen. My office now, he said curtly. The drive to the Commission's regional headquarters took nearly 2 hours. When Catherine walked into Morrison's office, his expression told her it wouldn't matter what she said. Sit down, he said, not looking up from her personnel file. I prefer to stand. Badge and weapon on my desk. Effective immediately, you're suspended. Unauthorized access of Commission databases. Leaking of confidential materials. Interference with an investigation. Those officers assaulted my son. They're covering up murders. Which is precisely why you should have recused yourself, Morrison said quietly. You're compromised. You're emotional. No longer objective. The harbor station situation requires delicate handling. Delicate handling? That's what we're calling cover-ups now? Badge and weapon, Investigator Webb. Don't make this worse. She placed them on his desk, each movement deliberate. The night Catherine was suspended, 2 unmarked vehicles began following her. She recognized the tactic, intimidation. Trying to provoke a reaction, she drove to a secured location, a community center basement where Reverend Williams had set up what looked like a media workspace. Folding tables held computers and equipment. The air smelled of coffee and determination. Elena was already there with Michael, their faces set with purpose. We're going live, Catherine decided. Tonight. From here. You know what this means? Michael said. Once we broadcast, there's no turning back. Good. Let them come while people are watching. They set up the webcam and connected the footage. Catherine straightened her clothes, adjusting what used to be her commission badge for one last time. The red recording light blinked on. Comments began flooding the chat as viewers recognized Catherine's face. The subscriber count ticked upward. My name is Catherine Webb, she began, her voice steady. 3 weeks ago, my son was attacked by harbor patrol officers for the crime of being young and working late at a dock. Tonight you'll see the unedited truth. She played the video. The dock's security camera showed multiple angles. Crystal clear, time-stamped proof. Every racial slur audible. Every moment of unprovoked violence exposed. Then the doctored footage side by side. Notice the missing sections. The fabricated narrative. The lies they distributed to media. The viewer count exploded. 50,000, 100,000. Shares multiplying across social media. This isn't an isolated incident, Catherine continued. Under Captain Lockwood's leadership, the Harbor Patrol has systematically targeted young men of color, falsified evidence, covered up brutality. Suddenly, officers poured down the stairs. Catherine didn't stop talking. They're here to silence us, she said to the camera, still streaming. But you're watching. The world is watching. Rough hands grabbed her arms. She could see the viewer count climbing past 500,000. She was led away, but the camera kept rolling. Through the basement windows, red and blue lights painted the walls like a revolution's dawn. The streaming broadcast to hundreds of thousands of witnesses changed everything. Within hours, federal civil rights investigators arrived. The Commission's Internal Affairs Division had been secretly building a case, waiting for the public moment to act. Federal agents swarmed the harbor station. Body camera footage that had supposedly been lost was discovered in encrypted servers. Files that had been sealed were reopened. The corruption went back more than a decade, 3 suspicious deaths, dozens of wrongful arrests, systematic targeting. Captain Lockwood tried to flee with a briefcase of bribe money but was intercepted. Officer Patterson and Officer Mullins were both indicted on multiple counts of assault, civil rights violations, and conspiracy. Catherine's suspension was lifted with formal apologies. She was offered a position with a new federal task force investigating corruption in harbor authorities nationwide. 6 months later, Catherine investigator stood at a podium beneath the autumn sun. Behind her, a newly renovated community center gleamed in the light. The old municipal building had been transformed, its stark lines softened by murals of young people thriving and justice prevailing. Hundreds of faces looked back at her. Mrs. Chen sat in the front row. Mr. Rivera from the dock stood with other community members. Elena and Michael stood to the side, still documenting everything. When my son was attacked that night, Catherine began, they thought they were dealing with just another frightened family. Just another victim they could silence. She paused, letting the weight of memories settle. They didn't expect us to fight back. They didn't expect you, all of you, to stand with us. The audience stirred, remembering those dark days. This center, Catherine continued, gesturing to the building, represents every voice they tried to silence. Every truth they tried to bury. Every family that refused to accept injustice as normal. Marcus stood on stage behind his mother, tall and straight-backed in his basketball jacket. The bruises had long since faded, but something in his eyes had deepened, not hardened, but strengthened. The Marcus Webb Community Justice Center will house legal aid clinics, counseling services, youth leadership training, everything we needed but didn't have when crisis struck. Everything our children deserve. She looked out at the faces before her, neighbors who'd stood together, activists who'd risked everything, allies from different backgrounds united by a common cause. Federal investigation revealed corruption going back more than 20 years. 43 wrongful convictions overturned. 28 officers indicted. But numbers don't tell the real story. She looked directly into the cameras broadcasting this moment worldwide. The real story is in this crowd. In how you refused to look away. In how you